Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. Mark Mincolla, PhD. Dr. Mark and I are going to be talking today on the topic of how to create lasting change with miracles. Welcome, Dr. Mark, to the Transform Your Mind show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, awesome. All right. So pleasure to be talking to you on this very interesting topic. So let me give you a short bio on Dr. Mark Mincolla, PhD. He is a nutritional therapist and quantum energy healer who has transformed the lives of more than 60,000 patients over 35 years. Dr. Mincolla has authored 7 international best-selling books and has appeared on Dr. Oz, Better TV, Fox 25 Boston, KCBS in Los Angeles, along with numerous national television and radio shows, and in regional and national magazines. His latest book, The Way of Miracles, Accessing Your Superconsciousness, is an adventure for the body, mind, and spirit that begins with the premise that miracles don't randomly happen. We create them. In The Way of Miracles, Dr. Mincolla shares experiences, documented research, and exercises that he provides his patients and uses himself to raise consciousness in order to cultivate the ability to heal and create miracles that have a lasting effect. Wow. All right. Awesome. All right. So from now on, I'm going to call you Dr. Mark. It's easier. And it's an honor to have you on the show, Dr. Mark. I definitely want to learn how to access my superconsciousness, which I think it's also called the soul. So my first question here, Dr. Mark, is can you share your journey to understanding the superconscious and miracles? I understand from your bio that you were able to cure yourself of a life-threatening illness.
Well, you're absolutely right. What happened was this. About 5 years ago, I made a connection with a wonderful producer from New York, a great film producer who actually produced the film The Way of Miracles. And her name is Christina. And Christina and I became very committed to the idea of trying to get together a terrific film, a game-changing movie.
Okay.
And so we actually thought about a lot of the patients that I've worked with and some of the remarkable experiences that I've had with healing recoveries. I had one woman who had a brain tumor the size of a tennis ball, and it was in her frontal lobe. And they removed it surgically, grew back 2 months later, and she said, I can't go for a second brain surgery. I just can't go through brain surgery. Impossible. So I'm going to seek out some other methods, some other means. So I worked with her, put in a very strict anti-inflammatory diet, put on some strong supplements and strong concentration of natural supplements. And we did a lot of positive mental work as well, a lot of meditative prayer and things like that. So we did a lot of work together. And over the course of 5 months, the tumor vanished.
Wow.
So the good news is now she's been tumor-free for 9 years. That's the kind of story that we set out to create and to produce in this film. And we actually have a number of different end-stage cancer patients, neurodegenerative conditions like people with Parkinson's and things like that. Amazing turnarounds, truly amazing, miracle turnarounds, no question about it. And we would let the patient tell their story. We just let them essentially connect with the audience and to tell the audience what their personal experience was with miracles that we experienced together. And in the middle of this planning, in the middle of this process, I was bit by a Lyme tick. And the tick that bit me infected me with neuroborrelia, like a neurological bacteria. And the bacteria crippled me.
Oh,
I
wow.
couldn't walk. I was unable to walk for 2 weeks. I was unable to move. I was paralyzed for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And in the hospital that I was at, in the rehab centers, they weren't sure that I'd ever recover from that. They said, we're not confident that you can beat this thing. This is pretty nasty.
Wow.
But the day that was the real day that lived in infamy in my life was the 2nd of July, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was not able to walk at that point. So I fell on the bathroom floor, hit my head, and I was on the bathroom floor for 14 hours,
Oh, wow.
paralyzed.
Wow.
So I was unable to move. And we basically had to wait 14 hours for someone
For
to come
someone
and
to come in?
discover me. Yes, that's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
So during that period of time, I went through a lot of different deep searching in my soul, a lot of deep spiritual work, and not knowing that I'd ever walk again, not knowing that I'd ever be able to move again. In fact, when I was on that bathroom floor, I couldn't move anything, couldn't move my fingers, couldn't move my head, couldn't move anything. I knocked over a bunch of bathroom cleaners that I was inhaling, swallowing them,
Oh,
because I
wow.
couldn't move my head out of the way enough. I couldn't move any muscles at all, none. Couldn't, no zero movement. So I was
Mm,
paralyzed from the neck down. Long
mm,
story short, 14 hours later, I was discovered and I was rescued.
mhm,
And during that period of rescue, I went to the hospital for several days, went to rehab for several days. I know that there was the great burning question was, would I ever be able to move again? And
mm,
we just didn't, nobody knew the answer to that. So I had to decide, would I be willing to live my life, the rest of my life, and from a wheelchair?
mm,
Would I be able to live the rest of my life without movement, without a body, without physicality? And I decided I was ready to live, regardless of what kind of hand I was dealt. I was prepared to live, to continue to write books. I'd write books in a wheelchair, to continue to do lectures. I do lectures in a wheelchair, to continue to inspire other people. I could do that from a wheelchair too. And I decided I was ready to do that if I had to. The long story short, again, is I went into some deep therapeutic protocols. I took a number of different powerful herbs that I was familiar with. My diet was absolutely perfect. Anti-inflammatory diet, a number of different supplements, nutritional supplements that were very powerful. I took a little silver in high concentrations. I took a lot of, like I said earlier, herbs that were very powerful against Lyme disease, Commanda, Hotunia, things like that. So I did get better slowly, gradually over a period of time. I got better, and now I'm basically fully functional again, back in the saddle, and ready to go. And so I went through some deep soul searching and became determined to assume the will and the power over my life again, and to make sure that I was actually learning from the mistakes that I had made the first time around the block. Like one of the things I learned that I was being a healer. I was always giving, never giving to myself. I wasn't much of a recipient. I was a giver, not a receiver. So I was always there for everybody, but not for myself.
yourself, right.
And that made a huge difference in my life. That changing that in my life made the biggest difference of all. Loving myself, identifying with myself as a soul,
Mm,
caring about the beautiful soul that I was never able to see before.
mm,
But identifying with myself at a deeper level now. After what I went through, I said, I am a soul, and I love my soul. And I became very committed to living from that place and to share my connection, my soul connection with the world. That's pretty much how that story went.
wow. That is such a powerful story. A couple of things I want to circle back to. So when you fell into the bathroom and were paralyzed from your head down, did the fall make you paralyzed or you fell paralyzed? You said you had Lyme disease. I just want to understand that a little bit.
Yeah, the type of Lyme disease I had was neuroborrelia. There's a
Uh-huh.
neurological borrelia
Okay.
that causes paralysis, motion problems, things like
Oh,
that. Is the Lyme that caused that. But I think
okay.
the shock of falling and hitting my head didn't help anything.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's the first thing. All right. But your story reminded me of when you were talking, there was two people that came to mind. One was, Superman, who was, almost, I'm pretty sure what we're going to be talking about here today is visually and connecting to your soul and being able to heal yourself by the images that you put in. And that's basically what Professor Reeve did. When he fell from the horse, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. In fact, I mean, he was such a brave soul, because he couldn't speak other than blowing into a straw. And then I also remember Stephen Hawkins, which, who had the Lou Gehrig disease, and also couldn't do anything from a couldn't do anything other than from a wheelchair. But all three of you, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's more, but if we look at the three of you, I mean, when we come to that decision, I always say to myself, I want quality of life. That, my living will says that, I don't want to be, hooked up to a machine or anything like that. But what always happens is when we are in a situation where we have to choose, do I go or do I stay? A lot of times we choose, like you, that, yeah, I'm not ready to go yet. I can still contribute to the world, even from a wheelchair. And that's very powerful. That's beautiful. And you have continued to do that. So the movie that you're talking about, that came after your fall and all that, or was that before?
Yes, no, this happened during the planning stages of the film.
Oh,
the early planning stages, and the film was just released 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And actually, people can actually view the film by going to thewayofmiracles.com. Thewayofmiracles.com. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
But I started my planning for this film thinking that I was ready to present miracle stories from patients that I'd experienced. Little did I know that I was going to be describing my miracle story.
Yeah. Wow. Obviously, that made it much more powerful. Wow.
No question about it. No question about it. Absolutely true. And funny thing too, there was about a 25-30 minute period where I didn't know if I wanted to live or not. And I was actually I swear I was on the cusp of giving my body up when I was on that bathroom floor, because I said to myself, do I want to live? I just asked myself, I confront myself with the question, do I want to live? If I have to live without, like, with this body, this immovable body, I wasn't able to move, as I said, fingers or toes or anything. I couldn't move anything. So I thought to myself, I need to know whether I'm.
Could you speak?
Yes, very, very, very haphazardly, not very clearly.
Okay, all right.
But I remember asking myself, do I want to live? And what happened was, 25 minutes later, I started screaming for help, 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 hoping somebody could hear me. But I didn't realize until I screamed for help that I wanted to live. That's how I figured out that I wanted to live.
Got you. Yeah. Other than that, you would just say, hey, you know what? I don't need any help. I just want to go. Wow, it's powerful. It happens. It happens to all of us, because, like you said, you can still contribute if you have family. You're still physically here. It's a beautiful thing. So, so your book is The Way of Miracles, Accessing Your Superconscious. So when you were healing yourself, I know you're a nutritional therapist, and you talked about supplements, and you talked about, what you ate, but can you tell us how the superconscious, or accessing your superconscious, exactly what I said earlier when I started, that the superconscious is also called your soul, and you talked about you being a soul. And it's very interesting. I love this show. I love talking to people, but most of the times that I come into a conversation, it's absolutely beautiful that I'm actually in that exact space right now. I just finished reading the book. I know I'm gonna have The Seat of the Soul, and it was such a powerful book. I mean, that book has been around a long, long time, but I heard a podcast with the gentleman talking about it, and I went, because he has a new book, and I went and picked up that book, and I am, learning to connect to my soul in a much more powerful way than I've ever done before. So as we're talking here about the super consciousness and the soul, and you saying that you're a soul and you want to connect to your soul, so can you share that experience, and for our listeners that don't understand it?
Yes. I think that, for starters, in my fifth book, the fifth book that I wrote is entitled Whole Health. Whole Health. And in Whole Health, there was a section that I wrote about identifying your I. And we use the word I 500 times a day, the average person. We never really take the time to tap into what we mean by that. Who is that? Who is your I?
Right.
So I say there's an identity crisis. It's a spiritual identity crisis because we tend to think that the I is a material self. It's a personality. It's an ego. It's a physical, cellular, tissue-based, organ-based self. But we're so much more than that. So I say that we've become victims of an identity crisis, a spiritual identity crisis. Because in fact, if you take the time, what I ask the readers to do in the book, in the Way of Miracles, go to the nearest mirror. Look in the mirror. Look in your own eyes, in the center of your eyes. Don't take your eyes off the center of your eyes for 10 straight minutes, 10 full minutes. So you look in your own eyes, 10 minutes. Don't pull the plug. Stay there. See it through for 10 minutes. And you'll start to find that you're getting in touch with the essence of your being. There's no personality there. There's no ego there. There's no material nature there, but you can feel the presence of your energy there, your soul, your essence, your core, your spirit. So I think that the objective is to tap into and get used to feeling that beautiful essence of self, pure energy. And I think when you take the time to do that, you overcome the identity crisis that I talked about, because you become familiar with and connected to the eternal self, the eternal being within yourself that is limitless, and it's a miracle maker. And again, that's the whole premise of the book, is that there's two selves, a material self and a spiritual self. You can't make miracles in your material self. It can't happen. They don't exist there. They don't happen there. You couldn't make it happen if you wanted to. But if you take the time to foster an energetic connection, a flow connection between your higher self and your core, I say between your heart and your soul, because I say when you meditate, you enter into your soul. But if you meditate with your heart, you give emotional connection to your spiritual nature. When you render emotional connection to your spiritual nature, think about that. Emotional connection to your spiritual nature. Emotion is highly charged. It's electrical, it's energy. When you take the time to combine the electrical charge of your emotional being with your soul, that's when you reach the limitless nature of unconditional perfection. That's when you can actually create miracles, make miracles, help people with miracles, and revolutionize your life experience.
Wow. 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 This is so awesome. This is so interesting to me. A couple of things there I want to circle back on. Yes, I have done that exercise where I look into the mirror and look into my eyes, but I probably don't even do it for a minute. So now you're saying to do it for 10 minutes. So that is awesome. I will definitely do that. And it is a great experience looking into your eyes and seeing the center of it. But yeah, I was told to high five it and go there and whatever, and that's basically what I do. But 10 minutes, I'm definitely going to try that. The other thing you talked about,
I want you to just feel the essence, feel the living essence, the party that doesn't have a name, a party that doesn't have a personality, the party that doesn't have an ego, the party that doesn't have a stake to claim in anything. Just your beingness nature, your beingness essence, the presence of the essence of your presence is what I'd say.
Yes. That is beautiful. I'm going to ask you what you do after, but I just want to also say this about the emotions. Like I said, I'm reading the Seed of the Soul, and one of the things that he says, I don't remember the person who wrote it now, got a brain for it and that, but he said that the emotions speak to your soul. And in order for you to connect to your soul, you have to connect your emotions. And a lot of people can't connect to their emotions. They don't know exactly what they're feeling. You know what I mean? So so that is pretty good. So let me ask you a follow-up question. So when you go and look in the mirror for 10 minutes and you feel your essence, you feel your spirit, you feel your non-physical entity, what do you do next?
Well, you do it routinely, for one thing. You don't just do it once, you do it daily. It's like a
Okay.
meditation exercise. It's like an exercise that brings you closer to your true self, and it helps you seal the understanding of your identity. It
Mhm.
gets you in touch with your true identity. So I
Okay.
think when you first do it, you're getting in touch with your true identity. You do it repeatedly, you become your identity. So the
Ah,
essence is to continue to do that until you become that which you see, that which you feel.
okay. All right. So that's beautiful. So I like the part about the miracles. You say that we can create miracles when we access the super consciousness. Lead us through that. So we're talking here about getting in touch with our soul, right? But there must be another layer in order to create the miracles.
Well, I think it's the identity issue. I think that the objective is to get out of the part of you that's limited, that
Mm,
to step out, step beyond the part of you that is materially uh, bound, that is there's limitation. It's not about miracles, it's about survival. It's not about the unlimited or the infinite, it's about the finite. So I think that to get behind, to get out of that, to leave that behind and to move into occupy the core of your limitless self, that's the part that I think renders you capable of creating miracles. Again, miracles exist on that plane, and your potential to make them happen exists in that plane. So we got to go to where that process is. It's kind of like if you want to go to where you want to buy food, you're starving, you're not enough food in the refrigerator, the cabinets are empty, and you're starving. You got to go to the grocery store.
right,
That's where your nourishment is. That's where your food is.
right.
Same thing here. If you want to perform miracles, if you want a miracle life, if you want to share miracles and make miracles for all the people you love in your life, you got to go to where the miracles are. You got to go to your soul, your higher self, your higher being, and to the field, the energy field that is embracing of that higher being. So that's where you get fed. You build your story of miracles.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, from what I understand about this, and I could be wrong, your thoughts is energy. You mentioned thoughts. Your thoughts is energy. Your intention is energy. And if you're in the right vibration by, accessing your spirit world and your soul and your super consciousness and your subconscious. So, in other words, I'm working on programming my subconscious right now as well. Then to do the miracles, let's take an example. So let's say someone wants to manifest something, um, a new job or money or happiness or whatever it is that they want to manifest. They access their soul by getting rid of the ego and getting rid of identity and being in touch with their soul, and then they're in a different vibration, and now they're thinking about what they want. And is that the layer? Is that the grocery store? As you
Well,
mentioned.
I think you're still at home. I think you're making the list.
All right, so we're not at the grocery store yet, right? So walk us to how
You're
do we get
making
to the grocery store?
you're preparing your list. So when you get to the grocery store, you know what you're looking for.
Okay, all right. So how do walk us to? So I'm making the list. How do I get to the grocery store? How do I get to say that? All right, this is what I want to feed me from that list.
Well, I think it begins by coming from the source within you that is more likely to choose really positive, powerful concepts to attach to bring home, to shop for. So again,
Okay.
I think that the higher self, the soul, emanating from the soul, and I think overcoming your negative connection to self. I say that so many people think of themselves as sinners, or they think of themselves as incomplete, fools, uh, mistake makers, problem children. I've screwed up so many things in my life. I don't have a very good opinion of myself, that kind of thing. So I think that it begins with getting over what I call the only true, what I refer to as the only true mortal sin is self-contempt.
Hmm.
So we have to overcome our self-contempt. because
Okay.
you're not what you thought you were. You're not a mistake maker and all those horrible things. I say that we need to get a picture of ourselves at 5 or 6 years old. Search for those family pictures in the
Mm.
scrapbooks. Find a picture of you at age 5, age 4, age 6, somewhere in that range, 4 to 6.
When you were pure.
There's two words. There's two words you want to think of when you're looking at those pictures of yourself as a child: innocence and deservedness.
Okay.
Innocence and deservedness. So here's the thing: that wounded child is still living in your heart. Never leaves you. Always is always part of you. So the part of you that is the divine Holy Spirit, if you will, the divine higher self within your being, wants
Mm-hmm.
to forgive that child, wants to love that child, wants to appreciate the innocence and the deservedness by
Mm-hmm.
unconditionally loving that child, by
Okay.
unconditionally accepting. So that is you. That's you playing that out. So the higher self of you within you
Mm-hmm.
is embracing the lower self within you. The higher self within you is forgiving and enhancing and supporting and
Mm-hmm.
compassionately living, loving and elevating that,
Okay.
that wounded part of who you are. So I think it's really important to understand that you have two selves, and the objective is to take the two cells, the light and the dark, put them together. Separation is an illusion. There's no separation.
Okay.
There's only wholeness. There's only wholeness. So when you become conscious of your wholeness, you tap into the fact that none of you is just a sinner. None, none of you is just a bad person. There's a lot of people that just automatically write themselves off as being unlovable,
Mm.
even by self. I
Yes.
say you want to be clear about the fact that there's innocence and deservedness. You started with innocence and deservedness. You still have that deep within you. It's still in your core. And the objective is to embrace it. The objective is to forgive it. The objective is to love it unconditionally.
Yeah, but that's very hard to do because let's say that you've done bad things, right? In fact, I was just listening to um a podcast this morning, and the guy was saying that we're all naturally good, even if we've done. All right, yeah, Bob Proctor. He was telling a story of someone that was in prison. He was doing prison ministry, and this person was a really people labeled him as a very bad person, but he went in thinking that there's good in everybody or there's greatness in everybody. And in the end, that person was paroled and moved to England with him and was a good person because deep down inside of him, he was a good person. So it takes, I guess, someone else to come in and, let people know that maybe their actions and their behavior were bad, but they're actually a good person, and for them to forgive themselves, and I guess after they do that, then they open up this path to connect into their soul and to connect into miracles. And is that what you're saying?
Forgiveness that isn't unconditional isn't forgiveness.
I'm sorry.
Forgiveness that isn't conditional, forgiveness that isn't unconditional is not forgiveness.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So
So forgiveness
that
has to be unconditional.
conditional. Right.
So I think by nature, you forgive yourself, pure and simple. No rationale beyond that. I don't forgive myself because I don't forgive myself this time for one shot or whatever. You either forgive or you don't forgive. And if you're not forgiving unconditionally, you're not forgiving. So forgiveness requires unconditionalism. I mean, I think that there's so many beautiful spiritual examples. I mean, like when I think of Christ being on the cross.
Yeah.
He forgave Barabbas
Right.
on his last day. And who's less forgivable than Barabbas? I mean, Barabbas is a pretty rough customer, a lot of
Right.
problems.
Right. Right. Right.
I mean, the nth degree. And Jesus didn't say, "Look, I'd like to let you slide, but I can't because you're too bad a guy." He didn't do that. He just said, "You're free today. You're going to be in heaven with me." Pure and simple. You didn't give him any conditions or any baloney at all. That was it. You're either forgiven or you're not forgiven. So my
Yeah.
point is, we need
That's a
to
good
take
point. That's a good point. Yeah.
we need to
Yeah.
take that lesson from Christ and from the Buddha and from Muhammad and whoever else. I think to have
Yeah.
the wise who've preceded us the hierarchy that has preceded us, spiritual hierarchy, the masters that preceded us, they didn't conditionalize their forgiveness at all. They're unconditionally capable and willing and engaged at a level of forgiveness. And that's
Yeah.
our lesson to learn.
Yeah. Like Christ says, forgive them for they know not what they do. Because maybe, so forgiveness, I like what you said though, but if it's not unconditional, then it's not really forgiveness. You're just playing forgiveness. So that's pretty good. So now you also said something that I would love for you to explain to our listeners and those watching on TV. You say that understanding death is an important part of expanding consciousness. So we can answer that in two parts. You can answer that generally, and I'm pretty sure at one point in time that you were thinking that that maybe you were going to die, and that expanded your consciousness. Is that how you came to this realization?
Oh, I believe that you've seen the Tai Chi circle before, the Yin the Yang sign. The Tai Chi circle is a symbol of balance between Yin and Yang. So one's dark circle with a light interior, the other one's a light circle with a dark interior. But together they make a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And my premise begins with the fact that nothing is more powerful, nothing is more beautiful, nothing is more exceptional than wholeness. You can't do better than wholeness. Wholeness is the end of the limit on planet Earth. It's the most powerful beauty on Earth, wholeness. So if you remove the dark side of the Tai Chi circle and just leave the light side in there, you got a semicircle, and there's no wholeness there anymore. So ironically, we need the evil and the darkness to actually counterbalance the light and the beauty to create wholeness. The objective is to understand the dynamic between the two, to understand and appreciate that the darkness is by design purposefully intended to elevate us, to give us discernment, to teach us, to bring us karma, and to feel pain and suffering for reasons, to feel pain and suffering so that we actually crave liberation. So everything works the way it is right now, but I think we just need to understand that the darkness, the evil, the negativity in life has a place. And it's up to us to spiritually determine and to discern where that place is. And then to elevate ourselves with the backdrop of wholeness.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that remind me of the Satan story. We were talking about Adam and Eve and this and Satan and the snake, kind of. Yeah. So what you're saying that the evil and the light come together to make a whole. So you're saying that death is the darkness. Is that how we understanding it? You're putting death to darkness.
No. Death is an extreme opposite to life.
Oh.
So in other words, the extremes require each other. And in fact, just go back just for a second here. When you think about the Judeo-Christian ethic, I mean, if God the Father wanted to end Satan's reign, he'd snap his finger and that'd be the end of that. So God the Father has the power.
Right.
And Satan could be gotten rid of if God the Father chose to do so, but he didn't do that. Right. He continues to let him do what he's doing. Because I believe that he's wise enough to know that Satan can actually bring him more souls searching for mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as bad as Satan is, he's got a purpose. He's got God's purpose in mind. Ironically, he's serving God. Don't tell him that. He might get a little upset about that.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing is the extreme variables I was talking about are life and death.
Right.
The best way to learn about life is through death.
What was that?
The best way to learn about life is through death.
It's through that. Yeah.
I know I heard you
say that. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that because we are all afraid to die or we don't want to die? So it's a lesson? Is that how that happens?
I think in part that's it. But I think the bigger part of it for me is they're contrasts. They're the ultimate contrast, life and death.
Okay.
And I think that, again, separation is an illusion. You can't separate life from death. They're part of one experience, part of one whole. So you can't do better than be whole. Like I said, whole is the ultimate. So I think to be whole, we need to understand death and life. And I think they help us understand each other. Life helps us understand death. Death helps us understand life.
Sound like, yep. That's very true. All right. So let's talk about your book now. Your book is The Way of Miracles, Accessing Your Superconsciousness. What would you like readers to walk away with after reading your book? I know that we probably touched on a lot of the main points here today, but is there something else that you want the listeners to walk away with? Or maybe you can tell me the purpose of writing the book,
I think the most important factor that wrote the book about was to help people to overcome their identity crisis. And for starters, I think I need to inform them that they have an identity crisis. So a lot of pain, a lot of suffering that they go through, they don't understand where it comes from. A lot of our pain and suffering comes from the fact that we're not whole.
Right.
So my theory again about healing, you can't be whole, you can't be well unless you're whole. So people are always looking for wellness, vitamins, nutrition, all that stuff, and that's exercise. Those are all good things, of course, but you cannot be well unless you're whole. So wellness begins with wholeness.
Okay.
And I think the idea of identifying with your whole self and getting in touch with the fact that you're capable of miracle things if you operate from your whole self. And so the identity crisis is the book is about spiritual identity crisis, and it encourages people and it gives people exercises at the end of each chapter, like the mirror exercise. And there's many more as well. They teach the reader how to get in touch with their own core. So the mission of this book, the mission of this movie, is to say there are miracles, and there are miracles that happen every day. And in our world, we see a lot of them. But that's largely because we're tuned into the fact that those miracles operate in a very deep place from within ourselves. And for us to get in touch with that deep place and operate from that deeper place and not operate from your shallow zones, you'll make more miracles than you can ever imagine. And I think that you got to overcome the identity problem first. The fact that I can't make miracles. I'm just a little old me. No, that's what you've been led to believe. You're much more than that. You need to accept and embrace the fact that you're a powerful being. You're a soul. You're an eternal soul. You're so much more than just a personality with limitation. You're a soul without limitation. That's what you are, and you live forever. So I think that's the crux of the book, and that's what I want people to tap into and to embrace and enjoy and to share in conversation, to feel more hope around.
That's amazing. One of the other things that I know is that, we have all this we can call it a guide. So everybody has been telling us for the longest while that we're limitless, that we are not limited to this body, but very few people are able to tap into that superconscious. I don't know if it's because there's a lot of work or they're just so identified with the personality that is very hard for them to do. So I'm pretty sure that your book, maybe give some exercises or outline some strategies in order to break free of the limited person and try to access this field of superconsciousness. Because I think that anybody that's in the self-improvement space right now know that we are not limited, but we all operate in the limited. Even me, I know it, but am I creating miracles? Maybe I'm not sure, but I try to.
But here's the thing. You can actually tap into your higher self. Start to work with it a little bit more than you have in the past. And then give it a test. Work at miracles. Work at difficult scenarios that are low probability, that you have the energy to explore with. You give yourself a trial run. See if you can make it happen. And if you can make it happen once, you can make it happen 100 times.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I know. Awesome. All right, Dr. Mincolla, this has been wonderful. I think we have time for one last question that I have here. Is it possible to transmute disease energy?
Yes, it is. I mean, I think that we can operate on a myriad of levels. We haven't talked much about nutrition, but one of the things we talk about in our book is a lot of the programs that I put patients on who are terminally ill. People are very sick, and we put them on anti-inflammatory programs because inflammation accounts for 72% of all disease and 150 autoimmune conditions. So inflammation is big, real big. And there are foods like egg yolks, not whites, egg yolks, peanut butter, peanuts, red meat, corn products, and fermented foods, a lot of fermented foods like vinegars and things like that, and marinated foods. These are all things that actually over a long period of time will build up inflammation in the body. An inflammation called prostaglandin 2. Prostaglandin 2s come from arachidonic acid, from fatty acid that these foods produce. And inflammation can be kept at bay by eating foods that are more alpha-linolenic acid, rich in alpha-linolenic acid, what are called prostaglandin 3 categories. So there's 3 categories, 1, 2, and 3. 1 is neutral, 2 is inflammatory, 3 is the anti-inflammatory. So the anti-inflammatory foods include things like fatty fish, like halibut, salmon, organic produce, organic vegetables, organic fruits. Those are the anti-inflammatory foods. So I think that when somebody eats these anti-inflammatory foods, whatever they had, even cancer again is supported by prostaglandin 2 hormone. So we want to keep those inflammatory hormones to a dull roar. That's an important part. And that's a therapeutic fact. I mean, we worked with thousands of patients and had great success, and many cancer patients, et cetera, doing that. There's supplements, of course, fatty fish, fish oil, things like that can be really helpful. There's a supplement called Wobenzyme, a supplement called Zyflamin. These are all really good natural anti-inflammatories. They're like natural steroids, if you will. They're safe, they're non-toxic, and they do beautiful work. So those are important factors as well. And I think, like I said earlier, meditation, prayer, becoming deeply and deeply embedded in your soul is a place of peace, a place of low blood pressure, it's a place of healthy cells. And again, we can actually program ourselves through meditation and prayer, Tai Chi, yoga, things like that, to become more at peace and to lower our stress factors, to lower our probability of disease triggered by or aggravated by stress. Those are all really important points.
All right, so that's awesome. So we can transmit disease by eating anti-inflammatory foods,
Right.
prayer and meditation, bring our stress level down. And then, yeah,
Absolutely.
I've actually heard that. I've heard people cure themselves of cancer. You talked about the woman in the beginning of the show that had the tumor. I've heard it, so I know that I know that it's possible. Yeah.
In our film, there's 6 patients that talk about it. In the book, there's 7 patients. So
Okay.
there's 13 different people in a book and movie that actually tell about their stories about how they defeated disease, how they transmuted beyond their disease factors and became well.
Okay. So that's amazing. All right. Wow. So this was awesome. You said something a minute ago that I want to ask you on the air. You said that the fermented food of the vinegar is bad for you. Now I take that every day because I thought it was supposed to be good for you. Are you saying that it's it's an inflammation food?
Here's the thing. There's a paradox here. Here's why.
Yeah.
A little bit of fermented food produces a little bit of tension, healthy tension for the body to adapt and become strong with, because it's actually a challenge. It challenges the body. So it's kind of like people are talking about the viruses. You get a little bit of virus in your system, and sometimes it can strengthen your immune system. Herd immunity type thing.
Okay.
Same kind of thing here. Same kind of thing here. A little bit of fermented food can actually go a long way and be supported by taking your cells and challenging them and forcing them to get with the plants, forcing them to get stronger. But a lot of fermented foods produces acetic acid, pyruvic acid, lactic acid, carbonic acid, pneumonia. Those are all inflammatory and cancerous precursors as well. That was
Okay.
discovered by Dr. Otto Warburg, a two-time Nobel Prize winner. So a little bit of fermented food can actually strengthen you. Too much can actually cause a lot of problems.
Okay, all right. So is a little bit taking a couple of spoons of apple cider vinegar every day, or is that a lot? Which
That's a lot.
category does that go into?
That's a lot.
What was that?
That's a lot.
That's a
Too
lot?
much. Yeah.
Ah, so you see? So I'm going to stop that right away. I told you I learned things on these interviews. So, right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So this has been amazing, Dr. Mincolla. You're an inspiration, not only for your work, but, you live, you walk the talk, you apply these principles to your life as well. So I love your story, about, battling the Lyme disease and getting yourself through being paralyzed from the neck down. And now I know you're walking and talking. So that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with the world through your books, through podcasts, through a movie. You said that the movie can be, people can access the movie on thewayofmiracles.com. My listeners know.
In the book, The Way of Miracles, for the book, they can actually just go to Amazon.com.
Right. Yes, exactly.
If people want to check out my work, you can go to markmincolla.com. MARKMINCOLLA, 2 L's and a K. Mark Mincolla, 2 L's.
Okay.
.com.
Right. Mincolla.com. All right. Yeah. So my listeners know that there will be a transcript of our conversation on the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. I will have links to Dr. Mincolla's book. I will have links to his website. And I also have links to where you guys can download the movie. I'm pretty sure that, all three of these things will be inspirational because, our topic here today is that we are not limited. We are a non-physical, we're dual personalities where we're non-physical as well as physical. The physical is limited. The physical is the personality. Once we become or tap into our superconsciousness, our soul, our spirit, one of the other words that the Seat of the Soul uses is to become a multisensory person and not a personality. So once you do all these different things, then you can access the space of miracles. And I will definitely start doing that exercise, Dr. Mincolla, of looking into my eyes, which would be looking into my soul for 10 minutes. Like I said, I do it, but I do it for like a couple seconds.
10 minutes. I want you
But
really
even those couple of seconds are powerful. Go ahead. Where is it?
I really want you to get to know yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I need to get to know me too. So that's amazing. All right. So listen, thanks again for, coming on the show, Dr. Mincolla. As we wrap up, do you have any last words for our listeners and those watching on TV?
I just want them all to know that I challenge them to tap into and identify with their true being and to stretch their capabilities to limitless potential and to be who they came to be and realize that they will be that for an eternity and to realize that there's no limits to that capability.
Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah. You said one thing in the beginning as well. Find out who your I is, or who am I? Yes, that's one of the things I do in my coaching. Find out who are you? What were you?
Identify your I.
Identify your I. Right, exactly. So so that's beautiful. That's where you start. Identify your I. Identify why your soul chose this body to incarnate in, because it has a purpose and it has something it needs to do. And it's a tall order, but one of the things I was listening to today with Bob Proctor, he said, find out what you love to do. And that's usually the gateway into finding out what you're here to do. So yes, beautiful. Love this topic. Love it, love it, love it. So
thank you so much, Maria. You're sweet. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, so listen, thank you guys for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. If this topic doesn't transform your mind, nothing else would. Tapping into your super consciousness and accessing the field of miracles. Thank you, Dr. Mark Mincolla. Appreciate
Thank you,
you.
man.
All right, so until next time, blessings.
Bye-bye.